of immunity. Privilege to do. And the appearance here is that you have something to hide. I submit to my colleagues on the committee, we need to know what the grand jury testimony is. We need access to that second volume. And you have no objection to our seeking it, but you won't tell us, even in a classified confidential setting. I think that position is disqualifying.
That was days of testimony years ago. I don't have the ability to recollect.
Well, you can refresh your recollection with access
the
to
transcript.
the transcript. Let me ask you another topic. And I really regret that you won't cooperate with us on the grand jury testimony. Would you object to the firing of the Department of Justice Inspector General Michael Horowitz?
Would I object to it? That's the providence for the Attorney General to make. It's not something I would participate in.
But you know of his work. It's been bipartisan, very thorough, competent, objective, impartial. He has been critical in Republican and Democratic administration. Won't you object to his firing?
I think he's done a great job, but it's not up to me to decide who stays and goes at the Department of Justice.
But I'm not asking you to make the decision. I'm asking you whether you will take a stand, speak up, stand up in favor of a watchdog who has helped preserve the integrity of the Department of Justice and aligned himself against waste and fraud and abuse.
If the Attorney General asked me, yes, for my opinion.
Volunteered. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What's up, folks?
Mr. Patel, I want to continue on a
Kash Patel
brief
confirmation
topic
here.
I mentioned earlier and one that we discussed in my office when you came to visit in December, and that is Redstone Arsenal and the FBI assets and the men and women that will report to you when confirmed.
Shout out to
that are
RSBN.
there in Huntsville, Alabama.
Shout out to Kash Patel.
I really want you to come and visit with me. The state-of-the-art facilities that we have there are pretty incredible. I mean, when you look across the board, we have the ballistics research facility, the hazardous device school, we have TDAC, which is the terrorist explosive device analytics center. And last but not least, obviously, what is sometimes referred to as Headquarters South. We have the sprawling north and south campus of the FBI. Look, there has been over $4 billion invested there. It is truly remarkable that the training that is going on there. They are delivering to missions when it comes to emerging technologies, investigating lead generation, security, and contracts personnel and human resources, just to name a few. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time in my 3 minutes to dive into all of the incredible work that's doing there, but just want to reiterate that the workforce occupying these facilities, they were moved from DC to Huntsville. They are working diligently each and every day to make sure that men and women in uniform are the best trained, equipped, and ready that there is. And I would love a commitment from you just to come with me to visit those facilities, see what those men and women are doing, what they're learning, and all of the training that's right there at their fingertips.
Senator, you have that commitment, and this is a great example, real quick, of the FBI's capabilities and infrastructure systems around the country that already exist to the tune of billions. And not only is it, I believe, a 38,000-acre sprawling campus, this Congress billeted 2,500 seats, but 4,000 seats still remain open. So let's go to work. I'll come to Alabama and let's fill those seats.
Absolutely. I love it. I
go.
love to hear that. And another thing, too, obviously, as we've looked over the last couple of years, I'll put on my appropriator hat. The budget, obviously, for the FBI has been decreased. Obviously, you're going to help us return America's trust in the FBI. But as we look at that and we try to make those numbers work, I just want on your radar, I want you to be thoughtful about this. You know, it's easy to say, let's cut training. That's an easy thing to cut first. I think that that's the worst thing that we can do. We want to make sure that our men and women are ready, that they're ready to find leads that lead to child trafficking rings and other things. And you've talked about the rapes, the fentanyl overdoses, the murders. We want to make sure that we are equipping them with all the tools necessary to make those strides for the American people. And so just want your commitment from you that as we look at those things, that
Senator
you will take
Moody?
a good look at training and make sure that that's not the first thing that gets cut.
Absolutely. High standards and merit. That's
Thank
what
you
we'll
so
do.
much.
I like that lady. She's nice. She seems like
Thank
The
you,
nicest
Mr.
of them all.
Chairman. As we talked about, Mr. Patel, truth incredibly important in an FBI director, and a number of the things I asked you about in the first round you didn't recall or you wanted more context. I'm going to give you one of those. I'll give you the rest on the record. That was about when I asked you about the Capitol Police officers who testified in the January 6 hearings and you accused them of lying. You said, and I quote, "I don't think that's accurate." I actually have the transcript here, which was reported by the Washington Post. And that was in March of 2024 on Joe Pack's podcast. He asked you, the Capitol Police in that fake January 6th committee, they didn't tell the truth, did they? Patel, no, not just them, many others. And lying under oath is a federal offense and they should be investigated for it. Do you believe that about the police officers?
That's a general statement and a mischaracterization of what I said. I encourage you to read the rest of the interview. This is why snippets of information are often misleading and detrimental to this committee's advice and consent process.
If you consent, I would love to have 5 hours of questions and then I could read the whole transcript.
You've got 2 minutes.
Wow. In September, you referred to the FBI's intel branch, which was stood up after 9/11 and works to protect us from foreign adversaries like China as, quote, the biggest problem the FBI has had, unquote. And you said you wanted to, quote, break that component out of the FBI. It was the same sentence where you said about turning the FBI headquarters into a museum. Do you really think that closing the intel branch will make Americans safer?
Again, it's not what I said. The intelligence component of the FBI has seen some politicization and weaponization that we've discussed here today, and intelligence collection capabilities belong in the intelligence community. Having served in both law enforcement and intelligence communities, I'm uniquely qualified to bring the intelligence limited component back to the FBI that ties back to the legislative mandate of prosecuting and investigating criminals.
Okay. Last, I will end early, Mr. Chairman. You said in May of 2023, this is important to all of us because Elon Musk is playing such a major role in the government right now. You said Elon Musk cares about 2 things, your data and his money. Do you still stand by those words?
I don't have that entire quote, but that's what it says.
It was in you were angry because of an endorsement of Governor DeSantis in Florida. And so you were defending Donald Trump. And so you criticized Elon Musk. And that was the context for it. And you said Elon Musk cares about 2 things, your data and his money. And it matters to us because he's playing such a major role in the government. And so I just wonder if you think that's true.
I don't have that full quote in front of me to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It sounds to me like my fellow senator is trying to get you to move FBI headquarters to Alabama. I have a full list of why it should move to Florida, and at the very least, maybe a Florida-Bama FBI HQ.
Florida-Bama.
Good people there, good recruits. We would fully support it.
Florida Georgia Line. It's a
Moving
great
on to a
song.
more serious matter, I know you would be
Florida-Bama.
shocked to learn this. As AG and as the chair of the Human Trafficking Council in Florida, we saw trafficking explode around the nation as a result of the Biden administration wide open borders. That's no surprise to anyone. But it might shock you to know that the National Human Trafficking Hotline that was funded by Congress to report tips to law enforcement in the last 4 years decided that they would no longer report tips to law enforcement, that they would take a more victim-centered approach. And this fell in line with a lot of what we saw over the last 4 years with people saying things like defund the police, abolish the police, nonsense policies that lead to an explosion in crime. You and I both understand that from our prior work experience.
Absolutely.
So there was a CEO that was put in charge in the last 4 years who said that that we cannot arrest our way out of the human trafficking problem. And I quote, "Trafficking in all its forms is the end result of inequities, abuses of power, and massive systemic and government failures." Do you believe that that is in fact the cause of human trafficking, or is it the result of evil, heinous humans that seek to profit off of others' pain?
The only people responsible for human trafficking are the criminals that intentionally traffic in humans, in children, and exploit them. And if I'm confirmed, it will be one of the top priorities to make sure that doesn't happen in this country and that we find the thousands of missing children that are still missing.
Amen.
I, along
Shout out
with
to Kash
many
Patel.
of
Let's go.
the other attorneys general in this nation, in a bipartisan fashion, not only demanded that they begin reporting tips to law enforcement so that they could follow up and go after the traffickers so that they didn't continue to victimize others, but we also came to Congress and tried to get funding pulled, or at least a mandate that they do what they were created to do, and that is to report tips to law enforcement. Do I have your word moving forward as someone who understands the necessity to go after traffickers, to not only identify and rescue victims, but to ensure there aren't other victims? Do I have your word you'll work with me to come to Congress to make sure that that happens so that that can never happen again?
You do, Senator.
I'm proud to say in Florida, we were able, when we didn't get that result here in Congress, we started our own hotline. It's one of the first in the nation. And no surprise, we immediately rescued 10 victims of human trafficking that were being held by force in massage parlors. Reporting to law enforcement works. It allows us to rescue and save lives. And I know you will bring that mission focus back to the FBI.
Thank you, Senator. I will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I want
this
to touch
lady.
on something that's
She's
been on
insufferable.
my mind lately.
She's from Hawaii.
And
I think.
I will tie it back to this hearing. We have seen a wholesale attack and assault in the past 2 weeks by President Trump on the value of diversity. Through his executive orders, he is seeking to dismantle over 60 years of work to promote equal opportunity in the federal government. His pronouncements have gotten so bad that apparently the Defense Intelligence Agency issued a memo 2 days ago that it would no longer commemorate Martin Luther King Day, Women's History Month, Holocaust Day of Remembrance, or Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
What does this have to do with
and
Kash
so
Patel
on.
and arresting people?
Why is there such a fear of people who are different? In Hawaii, we celebrate diversity and know that it gives
man.
us strength.
Is
It
this
is
lady
part of
serious?
what makes Hawaii and America great. Mr. Patel, earlier you shared some deplorable racist rhetoric that had been used against you. As someone who has also been the recipient of this sort of hateful language, I am deeply sympathetic. I also note, Mr. Patel, that in the past you have recognized the value of diversity. Back when you were in law school, you signed on to an amicus brief in the Grither case, supporting consideration of race in law school admissions.
What is it
I
you
hope
holding
that
behind
joining
me?
the Trump administration will not cause you to change your views on the value of diversity. Reflecting on this hearing, it is sad that we are considering Mr. Patel's nomination despite his gross inadequacy to do the job of FBI director fairly and objectively. Yet there is no question that much pressure has been brought to bear on my Republican colleagues to support this nomination. For example, a man named Mike Davis has been threatening my Republican colleagues. He said that this vote was a red line, that if Senate Republicans don't vote to confirm Mr. Patel,
That was Benny
his
Johnson.
organization, a group called the Article 3 Project, would make their lives a living hell. I certainly hope that all of us will base our vote on your nomination.
Benny
on the
Johnson
best
out here getting
interest
famous.
Who can work in the best interest of our country.
Yeah, famous,
and
famous.
not
Let's
based
go.
on this sort of pressure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to give you a chance to respond to this because I think my colleagues are misstating the law here. You can't authorize the release of your grand jury testimony. Only a court can do that. Is that right?
That's been my understanding.
Yeah, and you, I think you've stated that the best reflection and the most accurate version of your testimony is the transcript in the grand jury testimony that you're fine to be released, but the court has to go do that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And it lasted like 3 or 4 days. Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I also want to, Senator Durbin's talked about, what your priority or your priorities will be. And I think your testimony has been that it'll be adherence to the Constitution and the people of the United States of America, right? You take that very seriously.
That's it. That's the only thing that matters.
Could you talk about maybe some other priorities. We talked initially in my first round about getting the FBI back to its core mission, which is to fight crime and not, sort of try to do the things that it's been doing the last 4 years. Talk about how you might bring that together.
So, Senator, I appreciate the question. It's something I wanted to address maybe 6 hours ago, so I appreciate the opportunity to do it now. Whether we prioritize going after violent crime and national security, we cannot defend against either of those successfully unless we go after the underlying criminal nexus there. And whether it's human trafficking, whether it's terrorism, whether it's opioids, and whether it's just outright gang violence, the intersection there is narco trafficking. It is the underlying underbelly, the evil, illegal underbelly of all those operations. And we have not prioritized, in my opinion, as a law enforcement agency, the collective power we can rain down on criminal narco trafficking networks. And ideally, if I'm confirmed, Senator, I would like to work with Attorney General Pam Bondi, if she can be confirmed, to set up regional drug interdiction task force where our local sheriff's offices, our local PDs, and our local precincts are folded in with the FBI on an information and authority sharing basis to take down the criminal networks. And the advice and consent process has been extremely informative this to me. I do not know your jurisdictions as well as you all ever will. That's what makes this so critically important educational. I did not know that Memphis was the homicide capital of America per capita. I did not know that there was a corridor in Ohio that speaks to the human trafficking volume more so than any intersection in the country. That is what I will rely on your expertise across the aisle to fold in those resources to target those criminal active hotbeds. And I believe if we are successful in actually crippling the narco trafficking networks, we will see a decrease monumental in violent crime and at the same time protecting America's national security.
And maybe, just maybe, where you have a third of the personnel for the FBI here in Washington, D.C., maybe, just maybe, one of the reforms is to get more of those folks out into those areas across the country to go do that, right? That's what you're talking about.
I think so, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Was that the senator to his left? He's over checking for his
Mr. Patel, do you know any of
prescription
these five
meds.
individuals? Erica Knight, Tom Ferguson, Greg
Live on TV.
Mincer, Steve Reese, or Carlos Fernandez?
Yes, Senator.
Who are they?
People I've worked with in the past at some point.
I'm told that those are the people that will be additional political appointees to help run the FBI. Is that correct?
That's news to me, Senator.
Under the history of the Federal Bureau of Investigation since the reforms in the early 1970s, there's only been one political appointee. I'm told that these will be additional political appointees, 5 extra political appointees. Do you know if Reese or Fernandez are affiliated with SpaceX or Elon Musk?
I don't.
I'm told that they are affiliated with SpaceX and Elon Musk, and
why does
he
this
has
matter?
influence in who will be placed around you as political appointees. Mr. Patel, did you see the President of the United States declassify the documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago?
Here we go with Cory Booker with this question again.
I witnessed the President of the United States issue a declassification order for documents.
That did not answer my question. Did you or did you not see the President of the United States declassify the documents that he was holding, classified documents that were at Mar-a-Lago? And did you?
I don't know the answer to that question because I don't know what was fully found because the Justice Department hasn't made that public.
You claim publicly that you saw President Trump declassify documents. Is that correct?
That's correct, Senator.
So you did indeed see President Trump declassify the documents that were found at Mar-a-Lago that he refused to turn over. Is that correct?
No, what I said, Senator, was I heard and witnessed the President issue a declassification order for a number of documents.
For the documents specifically that were at Mar-a-Lago?
When he issued that order, there was documents. I don't know what was found and what was not found at Mar-a-Lago. I wasn't there.
So this is the issue. The question is will you lie for the President of the United States? Would you lie for Donald Trump?
No.
This guy, Cory Booker's
I
going
hear
in.
you saying no, but the best way to clarify that would be to testify as you are allowed by law upon what you said to the grand jury. Because that grand jury, as you just said to my colleague, 2 or 3 days of it was about this specific issue. And so as my time ends, Mr. Chairman, it would be utterly irresponsible for this committee to move forward with his nomination unless we know factually, which can be proven by looking at the documents that he's refusing to testify towards. It would be irresponsible for us to move forward if we do not know that the future head of the FBI would break the law and lie for the President of the United States. We can find that out factually if we had access to the testimony, or if he would tell us what he said to the grand jury, which by the law of the United States of America, he's allowed to, but he's refusing to do so.
I don't think
he's refusing the transparency that he claims to adhere to. He is refusing to be direct with the United States Senate. He's refusing to be transparent and put it all out there. Did he or did he not lie for the president? That is the question.
This guy's about to
Thank
pop a
you,
brain cell here.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. And thank you for your
Pop a
patience
blood vessel.
today. We do appreciate it. Just for the record, Mr. Chairman,
This guy's eating.
I put up the clip that showed me requesting the records for Epstein. That is, I put that up on social media just so we could clarify that issue. Mr. Patel, what I'd like to ask you about, you mentioned that Memphis is the homicide capital of the country. That concerns us. And we've recently had an issue where the FBI wanted to consolidate the Memphis and Knoxville offices into a Nashville office. And of course, this causes us some concern. And I would like to get your commitment that you will make certain that we have every resource we need in Memphis to deal with this issue, and that the FBI will be appropriately resourced in the state of Tennessee.
You absolutely will, Senator.
Thank you so much for that. And then we've had some talk today about DEI, and we've talked about this in this committee, and the emphasis the FBI put on DEI and things like counting Swifty bracelets and things of that nature, and not on investigations. And what we want to make certain is that we have qualified individuals who are going to stick to that core mission. And you have talked about that mission today, and thank you for being able to recite what it is. We appreciate that. And I want you to just talk a little bit about those first few actions that you can take to build back the recruiting and the training in order to accomplish that mission.
Absolutely, Senator. Quite simply, I know we have limited time, is that people who sign up to serve the FBI must meet the rigorous high standards, merits, and physical fitness standards, and those will not be changed.
So that will be a priority for you.
And I think people who want to join the FBI do so with the dedication to serve this country and an adherence to law enforcement. And we will allow those folks that graduate from the academy and enter the FBI to carry a gun and a badge in representation of this country to protect its citizens. And when we allow the good cops to be cops and put handcuffs on the bad guys, I think you will see an exponential increase in enrollment and how we keep people at the FBI.
And that is a day one item for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Patel, do you believe that background checks for firearm purchases are constitutional?
I don't know the in-depths of it, but I think that's what the Supreme Court has said, Senator.
So the word would be YES, yes. Can you say yes? Are background checks constitutional?
I can say whatever the Constitution and the Supreme Court ruled is the rule of the land.
And what is the law of the land at the moment?
I'm not an expert on state-by-state background checks.
You're going to be universal background checks. Well,
that's different.
I think actually your answer is pretty clear. Let me ask you another question. Do you believe that civilian ownership of machine guns are protected by the Second Amendment?
Universal background checks are different. That's not
I
what
asked you a
say.
separate question. Do you believe civilian ownership of machine guns is protected by the Second Amendment?
Whatever the courts rule in regards to the Second Amendment is what is protected by the Second Amendment.
Yet another telling response, colleagues, on another important issue. We've all talked, both sides of the aisle, about our concern about gun violence in America. I raise these questions because of an association I can observe between Mr. Patel and Gun Owners of America, a group staunchly opposed to firearm regulation, a group that Mr. Patel addressed in August, and a group that in December issued a press release applauding his nomination to be FBI director. Gun Owners of America has taken extreme positions, including the position that all background checks are unconstitutional, and that civilian ownership of machine guns is protected under the Second Amendment. Mr. Patel, let me remind you that as FBI director, you would oversee critical responsibilities related to firearm regulation, including administering the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. Yes, it's constitutional. It's in place for a reason.
Yeah, these guys are getting
You would also
serious.
regulate the distribution of machine guns to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Policies and programs in place for a reason. And given your hesitancy, given your answers, I'm concerned about your ability to do the job when it's not in alignment with groups like Gun Owners of America. Colleagues, we've been hearing a lot of partial responses and lack of recollections throughout the day, and I can't help but identify the pattern of Mr. Patel calling FBI leadership corrupt, labeling agents as gangsters, accusing them of being part of a criminal deep state conspiracy. We've heard of his experience with the J6 prison choir, a group of individuals convicted for their roles in the January 6th insurrection. We've heard his false claims that the U.S. had secured airspace permissions during a high-stakes SEAL team hostage rescue mission in Nigeria. I can go on and on. These positions are inconsistent with the role of FBI director, a position that demands independence, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to the rule of law. Mr. Patel, your loyalty to President Trump and the MAGA movement may score you points in some quarters, but they are certainly not the qualities necessary to serve as director of the FBI. And Mr. Chair, just in closing, I understand while I was out of the room earlier that Senator Tillis raised my name and attributed to a quote, bent the knee as part of my questioning earlier to me. And so for the record and for my colleague from North Carolina, I want to clarify that the bent the knee quote were not my words. I was quoting Mr. Patel as he appeared on the Sean Ryan show on September 2nd of 2024. And I'm happy to share a link, Senator Tillis, to clarify. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't want to belabor this, but it certainly would be of benefit to us if that grand jury testimony could be released. But my understanding is the Senator Whitehouse testimony point that you don't need, you as a witness could reveal what you said. And I'm just suggesting you might give that some further thought. The second thing is that you have everybody who runs an agency has enormous responsibility for the people who work there. I happen to have an incredibly high opinion of the FBI. The first time I came to Washington as a boy, I remember the thrill I had going to the FBI headquarters. I thought it was a big deal that my senator then got me special tickets to go, and I've always admired them. There's a lot of apprehension there, and it's not just on this question of weaponization. There's a lot of disruption in a new administration. And if you've seen, the president announced an impoundment in effect. It's been rescinded by the courts. But we've received calls from folks in various agencies who we've worked with or seen over the years, and there's just an immense amount of insecurity. Do I have my job? Don't I have my job? And frankly, I think this is my point to the president. Chaos is one thing, but cruelty is another. And having people be really uncertain about do they have a job today or not and leaving them in limbo, I don't think is a good thing for morale. And I don't care whether it's a Democratic or Republican president. I'm just looking to you to assure me that the tradition that we've had anchored in the FBI since 1972, when it was politicized. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover went after Martin Luther King in a disgusting and despicable way. He went after some John Birch Society folks for their political beliefs in a disgusting and horrible way. And we have no political appointees over there. So it's going to be up to you to, I think, strengthen that tradition. And we heard about the political appointees who are over there now, or I guess they're not officially appointees, but they've been sent by the administration. You didn't know about it. But one of them is from SpaceX. And, you know, Elon Musk, he's a rich guy, but he has no authority other than what's delegated by the president, but he has no official authority. And why is it, you can't answer this, but do you want somebody like Elon Musk peering over your shoulder, telling you what to do about personnel?
No, the FBI must be independent.
Go kick him out. I mean, I'm with you on that. He has no basis. He has no reason to be there. There's some former FBI people. You'll pick the people that you want to listen to. You'll have to make the decisions. You'll be accountable to this committee. But no on Elon Musk. He's just a political crony who knows nothing about law enforcement. So thank you for that assurance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, when Mr. Booker was asking you questions in his first round, you said, Senator, the grand jury testimony is available to you.
Schiff.
I encourage you to make it public. You also later said, or previously to Mr. Booker said, get my grand jury testimony. I asked the Department of Justice to make it public. I asked the Department of Justice to make it public. Do you stand by that testimony?
If that's what I said.
So you asked the Justice Department to make your grand jury testimony public?
At the time of my appearance in the grand jury.
And who did you ask to do that?
The lawyers.
Mr. Chairman, since the witness has said that he encourages this testimony to be public, that he in fact asked the Justice Department to make it public, I would ask you, Mr. Chairman, if you and the ranking member would be willing to write to the court acknowledging the witness has asked for this to be public, supporting it being made public. I can't imagine there's a court in the land that would say no to a bipartisan request like that.
I won't tell you. Let me say something. I'm not going to take this out of your time. It's not directly answering your question, but I think it'd be significant what Richard Grinnell put on X. I testified in front of Jack Smith's grand jury, at Justice Department, and Jack Smith's prosecutor told me directly that I could not talk about my testimony or risk legal actions. Then he goes on to say that certain senators I won't mention here should, as those lawyers, ask those lawyers why they instructed witnesses this way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd welcome the chance to have Mr. Grinnell testify under oath as opposed to on X. But nevertheless, what I would ask, given that this witness has said he made the request, this witness has said he would like us to read the testimony, I would ask if you and Senator Durbin would be willing to make that request of the court.
I wouldn't answer your question without get all the background I need, considering the conversation between you two. I couldn't make that judgment now.
Yeah, I appreciate your consideration, Mr. Chairman. And the reason why I think it's so important is let's remind ourselves what those documents were in Mar-a-Lago.
It's like, nah,
according
bruh.
to the indictment, the classified documents Trump stored in his boxes included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the United States and its allies to military attack, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. So testimony that goes to the care or lack of care, the truthfulness or lack of truthfulness of Mr. Patel would be directly relevant to whether he should be confirmed as FBI director, and those records are there for the asking. No court's going to turn us down. Mr. Patel may be, I don't know, but he may be the first nominee for FBI director in history who felt it necessary to plead the fifth.
Yeah.
To say that he wouldn't testify to a grand jury because it might incriminate him. Maybe the first nominee for FBI director ever to feel the necessity of pleading to the Fifth.
This guy's
Shouldn't
harping
we
on
ask for that testimony
Yeah.
when the
I was
witness
about to
himself
say,
says he would encourage it?
they really want this testimony,
Finally,
man.
I would just say we need to think about where we are in this moment. We have a new president. He's fired prosecutors who investigated him. He's investigating other prosecutors,
These
or his
people are
Department of Justice
scared,
is.
bro.
He's firing
Scared.
inspector generals who might hold him accountable. And this is just the start. And as FBI director nominee, he's chosen someone whose primary qualification, in my view, is his willingness to say yes when everyone else would say no to whatever the president wanted.
Yeah,
To
these
say
people are
whatever
scared.
he wanted, to do whatever he wanted. That's why he is sitting here. I mean, look at the people who held that job before Mr. Patel. The stature of the people that held that job. The qualifications of the people that held that job. And how can any of us think that his background, his qualifications hold a candle to the people who went before him? How did we get here where we are defending a nominee like this? Who makes songs with convicts who attack law enforcement? How did we get here? And where are we going? History is littered with democracies that lost their freedoms.
What does this have
and
to do
didn't
with
notice
this
it while
man
it was
here?
happening.
Come on,
Let's
man.
not
Ask
be
him
one
the
of them.
questions.
Your time's up.
Right. Get this
Before
clown out of here.
Senator Tillis
I'm sorry.
ends this, I
Man.
want to put in the record
Cry it.
letter from the parents of Kayla Muller. Kayla
Kash
Muller.
Patel.
Mr. Patel met them through his role in the successful operation to track and kill ISIS leader al-Baghdadi. The terrorist, I'm quoting, the terrorist group ISIS kidnapped our daughter Kayla on August 2013. Any family who has lived through such an experience will know the value of dedicated, compassionate law enforcement officials. Because we have personal experience of his dedication, we know that Kash Patel is such a person. We continue to see in him a genuinely kind, thoughtful, action-oriented man who focuses on what is true and right and just. He loves our country and our citizens and wants the best for them all. He wants the country to do the best that it can. Without objection, I'll put their letter in the record. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, I think everything that I did to invest in knowing you better has been on display today. Congratulations. You've exhibited composure, knowledge of the subject matter that I think more than qualifies you for director of the FBI. You know, we seem to have the benefit of sort of a different view of looking at the history. I heard, I actually was supportive of Comey until I figured out that he was playing games. Maybe this is one of the people of great stature, but it's well known now that he did some things that seem to have a political tint to them. I voted for Christopher Wray. I think he's a good man, but I also think he oversaw a department that did bad things. And at the end of the day, that person has to own it, and you will too. It's probably going to disappoint the audience to hear what I'm about to say, those who are watching at home. But you may be surprised to know that most of us at this dais on both sides of the aisle like each other. Senator Schiff and I just met within the last week to talk about areas that we can work together on. Senator Padilla and I actually work together. We co-chair the bipartisan mental health caucus, and I believe it's actually one of the most important pieces of legislation we've done. I didn't get a whole lot of Republicans to vote for it, but a fair number. And this is working extraordinarily well. Would you commit to me to go into the Nix Center in West Virginia and just see how extraordinary this has come to be and how it hasn't resulted in a mass confiscation of guns? It hasn't resulted in a propagation of red flag laws. In fact, the plain text of the legislation is not allowing money to flow to states, unfortunately, including Florida, that we believe have not gotten the due process right quite yet so that we would actually fund red flag laws that make sense. This is what bipartisanship produces. Now, you're not going to see any bipartisanship in your confirmation. Look, we had Pam Bondi here, and we had people on this committee talking about a friendship or a friendly relationship
in the past. The fact is, it was a shirts and skins game. Blue voted no, red voted yes. It's got to be the same thing for your confirmation. But Mr. Patel, I tell you, it has been a distinct honor to do the work with you to get you ready for this hearing. You did all the work. I just, I'm kind of like the person on the sideline giving you some suggestions, but you did an extraordinary job. And you're going to be held to a high standard. I hope you listen to, and if you don't remember it, listen again to what Senator Kennedy said. There are folks like us that are tired of the pendulum swinging back and forth. We want to be the Senate that confirms an FBI director, that rights the ship, shows consistent respect for the rule of law and the Constitution, consistent respect for all law enforcement officers, and I absolutely believe you're up to the task, and I look forward to supporting your nomination.
Thank you, Senator.
Before I close the meeting, you have anything you want to say? Nope. I've got something here that's directly related. When in my opening statement, I said I want the members of this committee to think about something that's brand new. And it kind of deals with this whole exchange we had today in regard to the grand jury testimony. So I want to read, based upon whistleblower disclosures that I made today, it's clear how unfair and corrupt the Trump prosecution was, and that's created a little faith at best in the grand jury process. We shouldn't allow part of that corrupt process to be used by this committee against the nominee. An example, one document I made public today, DOJ officials literally concurred with Thibault to open the elector case against Trump, and that included a grand jury investigation. Jack Smith's lawfare efforts and its corrupt process should be what this committee investigates. Mr. Patel, thank you for your testimony today. Your family and friends who are here, I think you got to be very proud of him under these tough conditions because he got tough questions. I think you did very well, and your reputation leading up to and during this hearing, I think proves that you're a person that can stand a lot of heat, including a president that's telling you how to do your job. If confirmed, you'll be in charge of one of the world's best law enforcement agencies at the time when it desperately needs strong changes. Everyone's information, written questions can be submitted for the record until 5 p.m. tomorrow. Mr. Patel, when you receive them, it's very important you get back to us just as fast as you can so we can set up the meetings that we have to go through to get you to the floor of the Senate. So return them to the committee as soon as possible. Mr. Patel, you are excused and the hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, there it is. Everyone's getting these 590s. It's crazy. Anyway, this broadcast has concluded. This was the ending of the hearing for today. I don't know if there's going to be another one. We kind of tapped in late.
Live coverage there.
Let's go see what RSBN has to say about this.
As a great patriot that he is, as he looks to be the top guy at the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
And really some unfair lines of questioning, no doubt, from the Democrats speaking over him. Also really putting words in his mouth, but he was calm and composed and really a great lawyer as his background, but also someone who's been so involved in national intelligence really for the past 16 years. So, I mean, this is someone who clearly will be excellent as the FBI director and who wants to reform an agency that desperately needs that.
Exactly. We definitely need him at the FBI. Before we get to our sponsors, one final point here. For those of you that watched that entire hearing or saw specifically towards the end there, Mr. Cory Booker and Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way. You could tell the hate and the vitriol that they had towards Kash Patel, which also Kash stands with President Trump and stands with we the people. So it's just, it's very ugly. And we don't like that, of course, as people. And hopefully the swamp will be drained. You know, what else, right?
Well, Senator Blackburn mentioned that too. She goes, my Democrat colleagues are clearly afraid of you for multiple reasons. And then she listed her reasons as to why he would make a great FBI director given his experience.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So we'll see how that goes. It's been quite the week here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We'll be live tomorrow at 9 a.m. Robert and I, Matthew Alvarez here, and we'll tell you more about that in just a minute. We do want to thank Colonial Metals Group for
Shout out to RSBN for this live broadcast. We're going to go see the beginning remarks of Kash Patel, and then we'll move on to the news about the flight over D.C., that a commercial airliner of 60 people went into a helicopter, or they collided with a military Black Hawk helicopter that was conducting a training operation over the Potomac River. Apparently, President Donald Trump gives his remarks about the incident. And then we'll look in a little bit to what Tulsi Gabbard's hearing was like. We'll check out her opening remarks, and then we will end it from there. So if anybody is interested in any of that, please kick back, relax. We're going to go check this out. If you're enjoying the video, please consider hitting the like, share, and the subscribe button. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. We're streaming live on X at KIWTB Gaming and on YouTube and Twitch at Kicking It with Timmy B. We got the opening remarks of Kash Patel. And real quick, I think Kash Patel did a great job. I'll give my last remarks after we go check out his opening speech here. This is Kash Patel. January 30th, 2025. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. Let's go.
About to give to the committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. I do, Mr. Chairman. Okay. You may proceed.
Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the Judiciary Committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear today. I must start with a word of prayer for the tragic accident that befell our nation last night, where we lost civilians and service members. I pray for their families. I pray for law enforcement and military personnel, and I pray for their souls, and hopefully God will find them peace in the near future. I'd like to welcome my father, Pramod, and my mother, Anjana, who are sitting here today. They traveled here to get here from India. My sister's also here, Nisha. She also traversed the oceans just to be with me here today. It means the world that you guys are here. Jesse Krishna. I wouldn't be here today without their guidance, their unwavering support, and their relentless love. When President Trump informed me of his intention to nominate me as the director of the FBI, I was deeply honored. Sitting here today, I carry not only the dreams of my parents, but also the hopes of millions of Americans who stand for justice, fairness, and the rule of law. My commitment to these principles is deeply rooted in my family's history, which has profoundly shaped my worldview. My father fled Idi Amin's genocidal dictatorship in Uganda, where 300,000 men, women, and children were killed based on their ethnicity, just because they happen to look like me. My mother is originally from Tanzania. She studied in India, as did my dad, and they were married there. They would later emigrate to New York, as the senator pointed out, where I was born, and we were raised in a household of my father's 7 siblings, their spouses, and at least half a dozen children. That's the only way we knew how to do things at the time, in the 70s and 80s, the Indian way. But we would soon learn the American way. These values have shaped and been the driving force of my career in 16 years of government service. Protecting the rights of the Constitution is of the utmost importance to me and has been every single time I've taken that oath of office. The recent terrorist attacks in New Orleans tragically claimed the lives of 14 innocent Americans and serve as a stark reminder that our national security is at threat, both internally and externally. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Department of Justice, where I served, play a pivotal role in securing our freedoms and our safeties for American citizens. If confirmed as the next FBI director, I will remain focused on the FBI's core mission. That is to investigate fully wherever there is a constitutional factual basis to do so, and to never make a prosecutorial decision that is solely the providence of the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. For the first 8 years after law school, I served as a public defender, first for Miami-Dade County and later for the Southern District of Florida. During that time, I represented some pretty awful human beings charged with some pretty heinous crimes. But what I learned there was the core value that has been enshrined in me since, that due process must be provided without bias to all Americans. And if we cannot provide due process to the worst, then there can be no due process for anyone, and our constitutional republic fails. But I battled on that hill for that due process. I would later serve in the Obama Justice Department as a terrorism prosecutor in the National Security Division, where we successfully contributed to the prosecutions of terrorist organizations like Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, and others. I was honored to receive the 2017 Assistant Attorney General's Award from Loretta Lynch for my work in helping the Ugandans bring members of Al-Shabaab to justice for murdering 74 innocent people, including an American. I would also receive the Human Intelligence Award from the intelligence community for related work on that mission. My experiences at the National Security Division and would later be followed by my experiences on the National Security Council as Senior Director for Counterterrorism, and later as the Deputy Director of National Intelligence, responsible for the production, creation, and promulgation of the Presidential Daily Briefing, our nation's most sensitive classified information and secrets to protect our country. My time in the White House was preceded by my time right here in Congress as a staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, where I spearheaded the investigation that exposed serious FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, abuses by members of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That misconduct eroded the public trust in our FBI. The erosion of trust, as Chairman Grassley pointed out, is all too low today. 40% of Americans have trust in the FBI. In order to get it back, there's a twofold track, Senator. One, violent crime is exploding in this country, and we cannot afford them to allow it to run away. We must tackle violent crime. Just in 2023 alone, there was 100,000 rapes, 100,000 drug overdoses, and 17,000 homicides. The priority of the FBI, if I'm confirmed, will be to ensure that our communities are protected and safeguarded and our children have parks to play in and not needles to walk over. The way we do this, we let good cops be cops. We let law enforcement, and we provide them with the tools necessary and resources they need to get after violent crime. The second way we do this on equal track is aggressive constitutional oversight from Congress. The public trust can only be restored if there is full transparency, and I am committed to that full transparency. Members of Congress have unfortunately submitted hundreds of questions that have been unanswered by the FBI in recent times. That will not occur if I am confirmed. All appropriate requests for information will be responded to expeditiously and fully. I'm committed to working alongside the dedicated men and women of the FBI. They are warriors of justice, and I will always have their backs because they have the backs of the American people. I look forward to answering your questions, and I want to take a moment to thank my family, my friends, people who traveled here, and my entire team that has made this day possible. God bless America, and I look forward to your questions.
Shout out to Kash Patel. I'll just say right from the jump, he seemed very, very professional. He seemed like he maintained his composure, and you could tell that he was getting some tough questions. You could tell he had like a slight reaction, but he did not break the composure where he just looked like an idiot. He looked very, very professional. Shout out to Kash Patel. I mean, you can tell if someone's squared away just by how they hold themselves. And you could tell that this guy holds himself with pride and respect. He wants to do this job. He actually wants to become the FBI director. He wants to help people. And it seems like he is very capable, qualified to be the FBI director. I can't wait to see him confirmed, see all the good stuff that he does for our great nation. It seems like he has a very interesting background, having two parents that are not from America, and you can see how they came together and then moved to America to be able to start over and have a new life. And then Kash Patel and his sister coming to the picture. So that's just pretty much the information just by him giving his speech and how he composes himself. That's what I got. I do find it very interesting that I forgot what senator mentioned the flight. I guess Senator Kash Patel went on some operation and brought somebody over international or over another country's airspace or something like that. And you hear Kash Patel's reaction to it. The senator pretty much was like, hey, you just did this. You did this move. You took this person, flew them over another country's airspace and endangering the men and women who were operating this vehicle, and helped get this individual. He was endangering their lives by doing it. And then he goes, who were these people that went on this operation with him, and who was the person? And he said that he knew all of those people. He wasn't endangering anybody's life, and something like that. Everybody's all in. I could just only imagine, but I find it interesting that he went on an operation like that. I'll have to pull more up on that for tomorrow's Friday broadcast, but I find that very interesting, and those are just my thoughts. If he did that, if he went on this mission to go save someone's life that he knew, you could see it both sides of like, wow, you use all these assets, endanger all these people to get this person, but everybody knew what they were doing for a bigger purpose. And, like the other side is everyone knew what they were doing, for a bigger purpose, is to retrieve this person and to bring them back. I don't know the whole story about that, and we're going to get more, but I just heard that during this briefing or this hearing. So I'm very intrigued. So that's what I think about it. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. We just checked out Kash Patel's Senate confirmation hearing to be FBI director. If there's more of it, I'll get you more information, but we'll definitely be tapping in on this mission that that Kash Patel went on. So anyway, hit the like, share, and the subscribe button. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. So we have what else do we have? Oh, actually, hold on. Where is? Do I have? Do I have? Oh, that's right. I was like, where's my phone? There it is. Let's see. Okay, so we have President Trump. He's speaking about the incident that happened yesterday with the plane, the DC plane going into the helicopter. This is straight from the White House. It's your boy Kicking It with Timmy B. We got President Donald Trump giving us some intel on what's going on, giving us an update. This is a lengthy brief. Let's go check it out.
Thank you very much. I speak to you this morning in an hour of anguish for our nation. Just before 9 p.m. last night, an American Airlines regional jet carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter carrying 3 military service members over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C., while on final approach to Reagan National Airport. Both aircraft crashed instantly and were immediately submerged into the icy waters of the Potomac. Real tragedy. The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal, and I have to say the local, state, federal, military, including the United States Coast Guard in particular, they've done a phenomenal job. So quick, so fast, it was mobilized immediately. The work has now shifted to a recovery mission. Sadly, there are no survivors. This was a dark and excruciating night in our nation's capital and in our nation's history, and a tragedy of terrible proportions. As one nation, we grieve for every precious soul that has been taken from us so suddenly, and we are a country of really, we are in mourning. This has really shaken a lot of people, including people, very sadly, from other nations who were on the flight. For the family members back in Wichita, Kansas, here in Washington, D.C., and throughout the United States and in Russia, we have a Russia contingent, some very talented people. Unfortunately, were on that plane. Very, very, very sorry about that. Whose loved ones were aboard the passenger jet. We can only begin to imagine the agony that you're all feeling. Nothing worse. On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now and in the days to come. We'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers. That icy, icy Potomac, it was a cold, cold night, cold water. We're all overcome with the grief for many who have so tragically perished, will no longer be with us.
Yeah, I'm hearing it's like freezing temperatures like out there, and then the water and everything too. I would assume that they have to send divers down there to be able to go check to see if there's any bodies there, and then to be able to get the black box. It looked like they had some kind of crane or some flotation devices to lift the plane up. I don't know what's up with the Black Hawk. I mean, I'm sure that they're already gathering that as well, but it's so sad, folks. Let's get back to it.
Together we take solace in the knowledge that their journey ended not in the cold waters of the Potomac, but in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now. Because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas. But we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. The FAA and the NTSB and the U.S. military will be carrying out a systematic and comprehensive investigation. Our new Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, his second day on the job when that happened. It's
and then Pete Hegseth gets confirmed as the Secretary of Defense. So this is all very interesting to be getting confirmed, getting confirmed. And then you jump into the office, and then next thing you know, a plane carrying 60 people goes into a military helicopter conducting a routine training evaluation flight on the second week that President Donald Trump gets into office for the second time. I don't know. It's a lot of coincidences. I'm hearing DEI. I'm hearing this, a bunch of things. But let's hope it's not DEI. Let's hope these people were properly the people that need to be behind the wheels operating these heavy machinery.
It's a rough one. We'll be working tirelessly. He's a great gentleman. The whole group these are great people, and they are working tirelessly to figure out exactly what happened. We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect,
So
talent.
simple.
The word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses.
We don't want stupid people operating these vehicles that is transporting other people. Dangerous material, people. We don't need anybody stupid transporting these. I'm just incompetent, not equipped for the job, not qualified. We need people that are qualified to be operating these heavy machineries, operating these vehicles. Oh my God, we need merit. It don't matter what you look like. If you can't operate this vehicle, if I can't give you the specs and read off a bunch of info that somebody who operates planes should know, you're out of here. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you look like. You can look like the rainbow. You can have no color to your skin. You could be this gender. You could have this orientation, whatever it is. If you can't answer these questions, if you can't get in a flight sim, if you can't perform when operating the actual vehicle and getting these folks back safely, conducting all the safety procedures and stuff that needs to be done, bruh, you're out. That's just me. Let's get back to it.
You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was on January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, I mean, actually, their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of the stress, where you have many, many planes coming into one target, and you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring. The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway. The initiative is part of the FAA's Diversity and Inclusion Hiring Plan. Think of that. The initiative is part of the FAA's Diversity and Inclusion Hiring Plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. The FAA website shows that the agency's guidance on diversity hiring were last updated on March 23rd of 22. They wanted to make it even more so. And then I came in, and I assume maybe this is the reason. The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
Shots fired at Pete Buttigieg. Who would have thought? Who would have thought, man? He catching these strays out here. Let's go.
The Department of Transportation is government agency charged with regulating civil aviation. Well, he runs it, 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity. So I had to say that it's terrible. Then it's a group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. And we took care of African Americans, Hispanic Americans. We took care of everybody at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's one of the reasons I won. But they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent. But now we mourn and we pray and would like to ask all Americans to join me in a moment of silence as we ask God to watch over those who have lost their lives and bring comfort to the loved ones. And I just want to say God bless everyone in this room. This has been a terrible, very short period of time. We'll get to the bottom of it. So we all saw the same thing. We've seen it many times. I've had the honor of hearing tapes. Tapes are scary, very scary tapes. You had a airliner coming in, American Airlines. He was doing everything right. He was on track. He was the same track as everybody else. They came in. It's probably the same track as they've had for 25 years or more.
This is the person operating the plane, not the helicopter. This is the person operating the plane. So what are we about to hear? Something about the pilot here being on this? I hope not.
He's coming in the path. And for some reason, he had a helicopter that was at the same height, obviously when they hit, but pretty much the same height, and going at an angle that was unbelievably bad. When the air traffic controller said, "Do you see?" He was talking about, "Do you see him?" But there was very little time left when that was stated. And then also he said, "Follow him in," and then almost immediately after that, seconds after that, there was the crash that took place. Well, you follow him in, that means like everything's fine. Follow him in. You had a pilot problem from the standpoint of the helicopter. I mean, because it was visual.
What did I say, dude? What did I say? It sounded like he's gonna be referencing something about this military helicopter. This military helicopter wasn't. Dude, that doesn't sound good, man. Now he's saying that it seems like the DEI is running deep. It was running deep through the military. And this could be a reason why this happened, because of the helicopter pilot not being fit to operate this vehicle. Because he said that the pilot who was operating the plane did everything, but it comes down to the pilot operating the helicopter. And there's some great men and women who operated these machines doing incredible things. There's men and women that service these vehicles as well as keeping up the maintenance and so on and so forth. A lot of analytics, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of hands-on work, detail-oriented work there. I mean, you got to be on point. You got to be on point. Checks and balances have to go when you're about to operate the vehicle and then shutting down the vehicle and stuff like that. What was this person? Who was this person flying this helicopter? That's crazy. And were they fit to be operating this helicopter? I get it. If you're training, you have to train the person. You know what I mean? To be able to operate it. But for what he's saying, that the helicopter went off or veered off as this is so good. Excuse me, is so confusing. President Trump definitely mentioned that the plane was veering off just a little bit ago. So whoever was operating this, I guess, seen the plane and got freaked out or something. Like, is that what this is coming down to? Whoever was operating the plane, whoever was operating the helicopter, man, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out here. Let's keep going.
It was a very clear night. It was cold, but clear, and clear as you could be. The American Airlines plane had lights blazing. They had all of their landing lights on. I could see it from the Kennedy Center tape. We had a tape up on the Kennedy Center. That seems to be the primary. Thus far, I'm sure we'll see other tapes because it's such an area where there are a lot of cameras, cameras looking up into the air, into space. So we'll probably see many other shots of it before too much time goes by.
Whoa.
But we had a situation where you had a helicopter that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters. You can stop a helicopter very quickly. It had the ability to go up or down. It had the ability to turn. And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously.
Wow.
And it did somewhat the opposite of what it was told. We don't know that would have been the difference because the timing was so tight. It was so little. There was so little time to think. But what you did have is you had vision. The helicopter had vision of the plane because you had vision of it all the way, perfect vision of it all the way from at Kennedy Center where the tape was taken. And for some reason, there weren't adjustments made. Again, you could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter. You could have gone up. You could have gone down. You could have gone straight up, straight down. You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers. For some reason,
crazy, man.
It just kept going.
That's not good.
And then made a slight turn at the very end, and by that time it was too late. They shouldn't have been at the same height.
Right.
Because if it wasn't the same height, you could have gone under it or over it, and nobody realized, or they didn't say that it's at the same height. At the same height, it would still wouldn't have been great, but you would have missed it by quite a bit. Could have been 1,000 feet higher. It could have been 200 feet lower, but it was exactly at the same height, and somebody should have been able to point that out. So all of this is going to be studied, but it just seems to me, from a couple of words that I like to use, the words common sense, some really bad things happened, and some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in an identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction. You had a plane that was following a track, which is a track that every other plane followed.
Right.
And I don't imagine, I know I've heard today that they might have been following the preceding plane, which was pretty close, but not that close, the preceding plane. But you wouldn't have even been able to see that because
the proceeding claims. Hold up 1 second. All right, sorry about that. What was he saying? We're talking about the pilot.
been able to see that.
He's talking about common sense. The clear visibility thing is my issue. You could clearly see that there's a plane and a helicopter, or maybe you couldn't. I mean, we're all not in the air at that time, but it's being said by President Trump and law enforcement that you could see. So visibility wise, like these folks have NVGs and stuff like that. At least the Black Hawk helicopter pilots do. Why was the plane going towards them and the helicopter pilot, instead of moving away, just goes right towards them? That's crazy. And if the plane is following in the past plane's trail, why, like, I don't know, just why would it, I don't know. There's folks flying planes in and out of that all the time. There's helicopters flying all around that. Especially, it's been amped up since President Trump has been inaugurated and has gotten in his office for a second term. So there's a lot more security. The Super Bowl's coming up. Kristi Noem and a bunch of other people have like a lot of work on their hands to make sure that everything goes well. Because the last Super Bowl, there's people shooting outside of the Super Bowl. It's insane. Anyway, let's get back to it.
That because of the direction that the helicopter was coming in at. So you had a confluence of bad decisions that were made.
It's crazy.
And you have people that lost their lives, violently lost their lives. We're going to take a few questions. I'd like to ask our new Secretary of Transportation to say a few words. Sean Duffy, great gentleman, just started. It's
a lot of work.
Not your fault, and I know you agree with me very strongly on intellect and even psychological well-being of the air traffic control. It's such an important position, and I think I can't emphasize stronger. I changed it when I first ran in 2016. I changed it. We had the highest standard that you could have, and then they changed it back. That was Biden, to a standard I read it to you. That was from one of your papers. One of the people in this room actually wrote that.
Wow.
And then I changed it back a few days ago. And Unfortunately,
It wasn't in
that
time.
We'll see. We don't know that necessarily it's even the controller's fault. But one thing we do know, there was a lot of vision, and people should have been able to see that, at what point do you stop? At what point do you say, wow, that plane's getting a little bit close? So this is a tragedy that
Insane, man.
should not have happened. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would just note the President's leadership has been remarkable during this crisis. We have had a whole of government response, local, state, federal, and when you see that kind of cooperation, it begins with the leadership in this body. So thank you for that, Mr. President. You make our jobs a lot easier. You made an important point that when we deal with safety, we can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members. And I think you make a really important point on that, Mr. President. That is the motto of your presidency, the best and the brightest, the most intelligent coming into these spaces. I want to take a moment and extend my condolences to the families of the loved ones. We commit to them that we are going to get to the bottom of this investigation, not in 3 years, not in 4 years, but as quickly as possible with the NTSB, who is here today, as well as the FAA. What happened yesterday shouldn't have happened. It should not have happened. And when Americans take off in airplanes, they should expect to land at their destination.
In one piece.
That didn't happen yesterday.
It's crazy,
That's
man.
unacceptable. And so we will not accept excuses. We will not accept passing the buck. We are going to take responsibility at the Department of Transportation and the FAA to make sure we have the reforms that have been dictated by President Trump in place to make sure that these mistakes do not happen again. And again, I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. President, and I appreciate the confidence you placed in me. Thank you.
Pete, would you like to say something, please?
Pete XF.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Again,
Secretary
I want to
of Defense.
echo what the Transportation Secretary said about your leadership. From the moment we found out about this, we were in contact with the White House trying to determine exactly what happened. I would echo it as well. No excuses. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We first and foremost, from the Defense Department, want to pass our condolences to the 64 souls.
Right.
And their families that were affected by this. Never should happen. And certainly the 3 service members, the 3 soldiers, a young captain, staff sergeant, and CW2, Chief Warrant Officer.
Yeah, Chief
On a
Warrant Officer.
routine annual retraining,
Right.
night flights on a standard corridor for a continuity of government mission. The military does dangerous things. It does routine things on the regular basis. Tragically, last night, a mistake was made. And I think the president is right. There was some sort of an elevation issue that we have immediately begun investigating at the DOD and Army level.
Wow.
Army CID is on the ground investigating. Top-tier aviation assets inside the DOD are investigating, sir, to get to the bottom of it so that it does not happen again, because it's absolutely unacceptable. But I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary and you, Mr. President, said, because it pertains to the DOD as well.
Right, yeah.
We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible, whether it's flying Black Hawks and flying airplanes, leading platoons, or in government.
Right.
The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on it. Thank you.
Very much. JD, please.
JD Vance. Yeah, everyone's have to speak on this.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I just want to reemphasize something the President said, and you've heard from the Secretary of Transportation and of Defense. There really was a whole of government response. We were all on the phone. We were all communicating yesterday, trying to get to the bottom of this immediately, but also try to communicate with the American people about what happened. Something the President said that I think bears reemphasizing, which is that when you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means, on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there. And I think that is a core part of what President Trump is going to bring and has already brought to Washington, D.C. is we want to hire the best people because we want the best people at air traffic control, and we want to make sure we have enough people at air traffic control who are actually competent to do the job. If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years, you have many hundreds of people suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin.
That's crazy.
That policy ends under Donald Trump's leadership because safety is the first priority of our aviation industry. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, on DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else.
Right.
And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality. And psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden. And Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened. And we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior, and that's what we're going to have. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you mentioned at the top of the briefing that there were several Russian nationals on the flight.
Yes.
Will the U.S. government be willing to facilitate the transfer of their remains, considering the fact there is no direct air travel between the two countries?
We've already been in contact with Russia, and the answer is yes, we will facilitate.
Nice. That's cool. Get those people back to back home to where they belong.
The situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is getting worse, even though President John Lorenzo has been mediating the conflict between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo because he wants to bring peace and stability. The situation is really bad right now. I want to hear from Ms. President if you have any plan in the future to bring peace in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
You're asking me a question about Rwanda, and it is a very serious problem. I agree, but I don't think it's appropriate right now to talk about it. But it is a very serious problem.
Mr. President, we don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control, and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people. You mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They are a group of people that have lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that. We'll be giving that very soon. We're in coordination with American Airlines. We're in coordination very strongly, obviously, with the military. But I think that's not a very smart question.
But are you
I'm surprised coming from you.
Are you blaming
Please.
I don't even understand what you even asked.
Based on your analysis so far, do you have a sense
moving ahead of the
who was at
investigation?
fault, if it was the plane, the helicopter, air traffic control, and can you assure people that it is safe to fly in and out of D.C.?
Well, I've given you the analysis, and the analysis was it was based on vision. You had a lot of people that saw what was happening. You had some people that knew what was happening. There was some warnings, but the warnings were given very, very late. You know, those warnings were given very late. It was almost as they were given. A few seconds later, there was the crash. It should have been brought up earlier. But the people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going.
Right.
I can't imagine people
That's crazy.
with 20/20 vision not seeing, you know, what's happening up there. Again, they shouldn't have been at the same height. You're going in reverse directions or sideways directions. Obviously, you want to be at different heights. I see it all the time when I'm flying. You have planes going in the opposite. They're always lower. We're higher. So if somehow there's a screw up,
it's common
there's
sense.
not going to be a tragedy. It'll be close. But, you know, there's never going to be a tragedy if you're at a different elevation. For whatever reason, they were at the same elevation. And also, from the American Airlines Center, he's along the track that every plane is along. You say, what was the helicopter doing in that track? It's very sad. But visually, somebody should have been able to see and taken that helicopter out of play, and they should have been at a different height.
Thank you, sir.
I will admit though, if there's 3 people operating the Black Hawk, or they're in the Black Hawk, there should be 2 people piloting it. There should be the trainee and the person who is the mentor or the trainer, and then the person who observes behind them, the chief warrant officer. Right? Am I missing something here? So there should be plenty of eyes on the flight path. Someone should be able to operate, navigate. Someone should be able to fly the plane. Both of those, I think that like the Blackhawks, they both have controls. So someone should both be on the control. To my understanding, I haven't been in the cockpit of a Blackhawk before, but to my understanding, there's 2 controls to it. I don't know.
You mentioned the Russians that were on board that plane. What other nationalities were on board that passenger?
There were a couple of others. We're going to be announcing it in about an hour. We have some very specific information. We're calling the countries. We've spoken to most of them, but there were some other countries represented.
Mr. President, have you spoken to President Putin?
I have not, no.
Mr. President, on your executive
Not about this.
On your executive order, you've already issued an executive order you say will restore aviation safety.
Right.
This crash happened after that. Was the executive order successful, and what more needs to change to keep people safe?
Well, we issued it 3 days ago, and we're in the process of making those changes. This is something that should have been done a long time ago. Actually, my original order should have never been changed, and I think maybe you wouldn't have had this problem. Maybe. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. We see like everyday life that very often those diversity hires cause sometimes issues, as you just mentioned. So what plan do you have? Are we going to see some fire? Are you going to fire some of those diversity hires in the federal government? What's plan do you have?
I would say the answer is yes. If we find that people aren't mentally competent, you see the language. The language is put out by them. And if you see that, I'm not going to bore you by reading it again, but these are not people that should be doing this particular job. They'd be very good for certain jobs, but not people that should be doing this particular job.
That's crazy.
Mr. President, you have today...
He said they shouldn't have been flying this helicopter. They should not be doing these particular jobs. Bars.
Blamed the diversity elements, but then told us that...
Just imagine the president's like, you shouldn't be doing this job. You got this job to fly this helicopter, this plane, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then the president comes in, goes, you got that job because of X, Y, and Z. You didn't get it for your merit. You're not qualified to do this job. I mean, like that has to do something. That has to psychologically like make a person go, you know what? Bang. Like, maybe I'm not qualified to do this. Maybe I need to do something that I'm qualified for. I get it. People are very ambitious. I'm going off of me personally. I'm a very ambitious person. So I understand people become very ambitious. They want to go for some things that they may not be able to do. And you'll never know until you go out and go do it. That's one of the big things too. Don't ever let anybody try to talk you out of anything unless you're trying to hurt yourself or somebody else. That's a whole completely different. But the whole point of this is some people become so ambitious, they go for things that are way out of their freaking grasp. Way out of their grasp. And stuff like that, when you're going out of your way, or you're going for something that's way out of your grasp, that involves with transporting people are dangerous ordnance or objects, and there's just certain jobs you can't do, man. Like, it's crazy out here. It's crazy. They got people doing jobs that aren't qualified to be doing these jobs. That's what it seemed like. I mean, that's just reality, but that seems like what the administration under the Biden administration was all about. It doesn't matter if you aren't qualified for the job, we want you for the job because you fit this quota, this color, this whatever about your gender, sex, whatever, instead of your merit, dude. Like, there's people out there based on DEI and not merit that are doing these jobs. Like, that's scary to me. That's scary to me. There's police officers, freaking first responders, military, doctors, lawyers, just anything in between all that. There'd be people not qualified to do the job. They only got the job because of the color of their skin or whatever that they go by, but not their merit. That scares me. And especially when I want to go and get on an airplane, because I wouldn't say frequently, like every year or so, I've taken a trip on a plane to go somewhere far away. I have made it back every single time. A lot of those planes are a little bumpy sometimes because of the turbulence, but I have never gone like, oh man, this person shouldn't be flying this plane, or they look this certain way, they probably shouldn't be flying this plane. I never had any of that until all this stuff comes up, and there's doors on planes flying off, and it just like things are falling apart. Their services not being provided or being fulfilled to this full extent because people aren't qualified to do some of these jobs. It's just insane, man. And you got people flying planes and helicopters. Bruh.
You weren't sure that the controllers made any mistake. We then said perhaps.
And then the aircraft and the air traffic controller stuff is very interesting. I did hear that has like a really high turnout or turnover rate, and they pay a lot because it's very, very how should I say, nerve-wracking to be in that air traffic control room looking over everything, and all these planes or helicopters and aircraft are landing. It's a lot to deal with.
Perhaps the helicopter pilots were the ones who made the mistake.
It's all under investigation.
It's all under investigation. That's why I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. We want brilliant people doing this. This is a major chess game at the highest level. When you have 60 planes coming in during a short period of time, and they're all coming in different directions, and you're dealing with very high-level computer work and very complex computers. And one of the other things I will tell you is that the systems that were built, I was going to rebuild the entire system, and then we had an election that didn't turn out the way it should have. But they didn't build the systems properly. They spent a lot of money renovating a system, spending much more money than they would have spent if they bought a new system for air traffic controllers, meaning the computerized systems. There are certain companies that do a very good job. They didn't use those companies. They used companies that should not have been doing it. No, I think it's very important to understand that for some jobs, and not only this, but air traffic controllers, they have to be at the highest level of genius. Okay.
I want to ask you about the ice skaters in a moment because the U.S. Ice Skating Committee was affected. But first, if I can, the cited FAA text that you read is real. But the implication that this policy is new or that it stems from efforts that began under President Biden or the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is demonstrably false. It's been on the FAA's website.
That, you?
No, it's on the website. The FAA's website. It was there in 2013. It was there for the entirety.
What I read.
It was there for the entirety of your administration too. So my question is, why didn't you change the policy during your first administration?
I did change it. I changed the Obama policy, and we had a very good policy. And then Biden came in and he changed it. And then when I came in 3 days ago, I signed a new order bringing it to the highest level of intelligence. Okay.
It was on the website.
It's on the website.
Quiet.
Welcome back to the. I'm sorry. You mentioned that a vision was probably the problem that was at issue in this crash.
Be quiet.
There's been some reports
Sit
that
down.
One of the pilots in the helicopter may have been using night vision equipment. Was there any
I heard
indication?
that. We don't know. We're going to know that pretty soon. It may change your viewplane if you do have the night vision. So it's very possible that could have happened.
Yeah, because if you have NVGs on, it brings in your depth of field. It messes with all of that, and then you have this light sitting in front of your eyes for so long. It's and you take the NVGs off, you have to wait for your eyes to reset to get used to the normal dark light or natural, or I wouldn't say natural because there's really no natural light at night unless it's from the stars. All this other stuff is man-made lights. This isn't natural light. So there's a lot that goes into that too as well.
That would
of wearing NVGs while you're flying.
Would be maybe a reason why you wouldn't actually see as well as on a clear night. You can see sometimes better without it.
Right.
Have a couple of more.
Mr. President, is it helpful to have your Secretary of Transportation confirmed, and does this intensify your interest in getting other nominees confirmed quickly?
Go to what?
Is it helpful to have your Secretary of Transportation confirmed, and does this intensify your interest in getting other nominees confirmed quickly as well?
Well, sure. We want fast confirmations. And the Democrats, as you know, are doing everything they can to delay them. They've taken too long. We're struggling to get very good people that everybody knows are going to be confirmed, but we're struggling to get them out faster. We want them out faster. It's a good question, actually. We've been pushing Sean. Everyone knows Sean for a long time. He got many, many Democrat votes, but they want to take as long as they can. They ask questions like some of the questions that Peter would ask that were totally irrelevant and not very good questions, but they want to just keep it going. They want to keep it going as long as possible. I was very honored, actually, that you got so many Democrat votes. That was really good. That was really good.
When I try to meet with the families, and second question, is it your impression that military training that was done during that time?
The what?
The training that the helicopter was involved in. Is it anything you can tell us about
You
that?
don't know. These are the things that will come up with the investigation. You don't know, but the helicopter obviously was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and a tragedy occurred. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got a question about the...
No, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've been critical of the current regulations, and you've called for big reforms at FAA. I'm curious, sir,
I made the reforms, actually.
What is your message?
3 days ago, I made them.
Yes, sir. What is your message then to the American public in the weeks and months ahead? Should they feel hesitant to fly? And if you could clarify perhaps something that the Defense Secretary said when he said that this helicopter was on a continuity of government mission?
I don't know what that refers to, but they were practicing. They do that. They call it practicing, and they were, and that's something that should be done. It's only continuity in the sense that we want to have very good people, and that has to be in continuity, and that's what they refer to. But it was basically practice, and it was a practice that worked out very, very badly. Okay.
On his question, the first question, should people be hesitant to fly right now?
No, not at all. I've not hesitated to fly. This is something that it's been many years that something like this has happened, and the collision is just something that we don't expect ever to happen again. We are going to have the highest level people. We've already hired some of the people that you've already hired for that position long before we knew about this. I mean, long before. From the time I came in, we started going out and getting the best people because I said it's not appropriate what they're doing. I think it's a tremendous mistake. You know, they like to do things and they like to take them too far, and this is sometimes what ends up happening. Now, with that, I'm not blaming the controller. I'm saying there are things that you could question, like the height of the helicopter and the height of the plane being at the same level and going in opposite directions. It's not a positive. But no, we're already hiring people. No, flying is very safe. We have the safest flying anywhere in the world, and we'll keep it that way. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Shout out to President Donald Trump for giving us that briefing. So apparently he's stating that it might be a DEI thing, it might be a hiring thing when it comes to the process, like the hiring process for folks who are in air traffic control, airplane pilots, and helicopter or military helicopter pilots. So that goes in DEI, into the military, into commercial airlines, and yeah, I mean, like that's very interesting. So one of these people were just not fit to be operating one of these vehicles. That's what it seems like to me off of the information. We need more proof, and I'm sure there'll have to be some kind of indefinite proof that will kind of tell us what's going on here, or show us that there was some malfeasance in the hiring process. I mean, all I have to say is, once again, just reiterating what JD Vance, the Secretary of Transportation, and the SecDef said. You want to make sure that you got the right people to be working these jobs. I mean, that's just as simple as that. The right people, whether anybody complains about it or not, right is right. If these people know how to do their job well, correctly, to the point, they show up early, they do the best that they can for the job, they need to be on that. They need to be in that job. You don't take away jobs from people who know how to do the job, but they don't fit the criteria because they're not the color of the skin, or they don't go by the gender, or they don't believe in the politics that you want them. That's just insane, bruh. We need common sense back in this place. We need common sense hiring and common sense leadership. Hiring and leadership. You know what I mean? Common sense execution of the mission. We need common sense leadership to be able to oversee and put people to where they need to go so they can execute those missions. And we need the people that are executing those missions to be competent people, not incompetent people. We need competent people. That's kind of my thoughts on that. It's such a tragedy. My prayers go out to the family members who lost lives in this terrible, terrible accident. This was a DC plane crash into a military Black Hawk. This was January 29th, 2025. Today is January 30th, 2025. I did a video yesterday covering it. Please go check that out. As well as, if you want to help support your boy, hit me up on all platforms at Kicking It with Timmy B, and we're streaming on X at KIWTB Gaming. We got one more video here for you. We're gonna go listen to Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation hearing remarks, and then we are out of here, folks. We are out of here. So thank you everyone for helping support your boy. Let's go get this video, and we will check out what's going on with Tulsi Gabbard and her confirmation hearing. Let's go.
My best wishes to you, Tulsi, and to your family. God bless our country. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Ernst. I know that Senator Ernst has a busy schedule to include a hearing for Dan Driscoll, the Secretary of Army nominee at the Armed Services Committee. I'm sure Senator Burr has to go on a fishing trip or something. So we will excuse both senators from the witness table. Ms. Gabbard, before we move to your opening statement, it is the custom of the committee to ask a series of obligatory questions to all nominees. First, do you swear or affirm to give this committee your full and full testimony?
I do.
Second, do you agree to appear before the committee here or in other venues when invited?
Yes.
Third, if confirmed, do you agree to send officials from your office to appear before the committee and designated staff when invited?
Yes.
Fourth, do you agree to provide documents or any materials requested by the committee in order for it to carry out its oversight and legislative responsibilities?
I do.
Fifth, will you ensure that your office and your staff provide such material to the committee when requested?
Yes.
Sixth, do you agree to inform and fully brief, to the fullest extent possible, all members of this committee on intelligence activities and covert actions rather than only the chairman and the vice chairman?
Yes.
Thank you for those answers, Ms. Gabbard. We now welcome the opportunity, finally, to hear from you in your own words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, I too would like to start by offering my prayers and condolences to those who were killed in last night's horrific crash. Senator Warner, Senator Moran, our condolences and prayers are with you and all of your constituents. Again, Chairman Cotton, Vice Chairman Warner, and all of the members of the committee, it's an honor to be here before you today. I've appreciated the opportunity to meet with so many of you and address your questions and concerns before today's hearing. I know they've gone, but I'm grateful to Senators Burr and Ernst for their trust and their confidence in taking time to join us here today. To my husband, Abraham, my family, friends, fellow veterans, Medal of Honor recipients, and patriots, thank you for your love and support. I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you." For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. The most obvious example of one of these failures is our invasion of Iraq based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence. This disastrous decision led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers and millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, and undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of Al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence. Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election. Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records, yet was never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this must end. President Trump's re-election is a clear mandate from the American people to break this cycle of failure, end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, and begin to restore trust in those who've been charged with the critical task of securing our nation. If confirmed as DNI, I will do my very best to fulfill this mandate and bring leadership to the intelligence community with a laser-like focus on our essential mission, ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. As the President's principal intelligence advisor, I'll begin by leading by example, checking my own personal views at the door, and committing to delivering intelligence that is collected, analyzed, and reported without bias, prejudice, or political influence. I enlisted in the Army because of the horrific terrorist attack on September 11th and volunteered to deploy to Iraq in 2005, where I served in a medical unit. After nearly 22 years in uniform with 3 combat deployments to the Middle East and Africa, I'm now a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve, where I serve as a battalion commander of soldiers in Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. I served in Congress for 8 years on the Homeland Security, Foreign Affairs, and Armed Services committees. And it's my experience in the military and in the halls of Congress that have given me a deep understanding of the complex challenges that our nation faces, in both roles engaging with world leaders, in both roles being privy to highly classified intelligence. So I know firsthand how essential accurate, unbiased, and timely intelligence is to the President, to Congress, and to our warfighters. I also know the heavy cost of intelligence failures and abuses. Senator Collins, you led the creation of ODNI specifically to address those intelligence failures of 9/11 and Iraq's so-called WMDs. The need for the ODNI under strong leadership still exists today. If confirmed, I'll bring my experience and fresh eyes to leading the intelligence community. And my day one priorities will be to assess the global threat environment, identify where gaps in our intelligence exist, integrate intelligence elements, increase information sharing, and ensure that unbiased, apolitical, objective collection and analysis to support the president and policymakers' decision-making occur. I'll work to end the politicization of the intelligence community and ensure there is a clear mission focus in the IC on its core mission of this unbiased, apolitical collection and analysis of intelligence to secure our nation. I'll work to rebuild trust through transparency and accountability. This is a national security imperative. And I'll work to assess and address efficiencies, redundancies, and effectiveness across ODNI to ensure focus of personnel and resources is on our core mission of national security. Now, in my meetings that I've had with many of you, you expressed bipartisan frustration about recent intelligence failures as well as the lack of responsiveness to your requests for information. Whether it's the surprise October 7th Hamas terrorist attack, to the sudden takeover of Syria by Islamist extremists, failures to identify the source of COVID, anomalous health incidents, UAPs, drones, and more. If confirmed, I look forward to working with you to address these issues. Ensuring the safety, security, and freedom of the American people is a mandate of leadership that rises above partisan politics. If confirmed, my commitment to the President, to you, and to the American people is this: I will do my very best to find the truth, no matter where it leads, and share that truth with President Trump, his advisors, and you in Congress, providing you with that unbiased, timely, and accurate intelligence as you make the tough decisions that'll impact the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. Now, before I close, I want to warn the American people who are watching at home. You may hear lies and smears in this hearing that'll challenge my loyalty to and my love for our country. Those who oppose my nomination imply that I am loyal to something or someone other than God, my own conscience, and the Constitution of the United States, accusing me of being Trump's puppet, Putin's puppet, Assad's puppet, a guru's puppet, Modi's puppet, not recognizing the absurdity of simultaneously being the puppet of 5 different puppet masters. The same tactic was used against President Trump and failed. The American people elected President Trump with a decisive victory and mandate for change. The fact is, what truly unsettles my political opponents is I refuse to be their puppet. I have no love for Assad or Gaddafi or any dictator. I just hate Al-Qaeda. I hate that we have leaders who cozy up to Islamist extremists, minimizing them to so-called rebels. As Jake Sullivan said to Hillary Clinton, quote, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Well, Syria is now controlled by an Al-Qaeda offshoot, HTS, led by an Islamist jihadist who danced in the streets on 9/11 and who was responsible for the killing of many American service members. Democrat senators in the past resorted to anti-Christian bigotry against some of President Trump's judicial nominees like Amy Coney Barrett and Brian Boucher. I condemn those actions as a Democrat in Congress at the time, as religious bigotry must be thoroughly condemned by all of us, no matter the religion. Unfortunately, there are some Democrat senators who still don't understand the principle of freedom of religion and Article 6 of the Constitution. Quote, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Unfortunately, they're once again using the religious bigotry card, but this time trying to foment religious bigotry against Hindus and Hinduism. If anyone is sincerely interested in knowing more about my own personal spiritual path of Hinduism, I welcome you to go to my account on X, where I'll share more on this topic. If confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will continue to live by the oath that I have sworn at least 8 times in my life, both in uniform and as a member of Congress. I will support and defend our God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Gabbard. A few reminders before we begin our 5-minute round of questioning. First, a reminder to the audience, once again, I will not tolerate disruptions or disturbances, either in favor of or in opposition to Ms. Gabbard. We all came to hear from Ms. Gabbard, not from you. 2 reminders to my colleagues. We'll have a 5-minute round of questions. Not 5.5, not 6, 5-minute round. We will also have a closed session after this hearing in which you'll have another 5-minute opportunity to ask questions. Second, if any question, as Senator Risch alluded to, begins to approach the line of classified material, my crack staff will advise me and I will ask you to hold the question until we get to a closed setting.
Mr. Chairman, could I just inquire? I was under the understanding that if in the open round, because this is the only time the American people will be able to see this judgment, you'd agreed if certain members needed to ask a second round of questions in the public setting, that would be available.
As is our custom, if a member waits until the end of the opening round and has a follow-up question, then we will permit that follow-up question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Gabbard, if confirmed, you'll be entrusted with our nation's most important secrets. We're all entrusted with that information to serve the American people and to keep our country safe. Unfortunately, as you said in your opening statement, we've seen too many instances in recent years of people who were trusted with classified information and went on to abuse and politicize that trust. For example, in October 2020, more than 50 former intelligence officers, many of whom still held a top secret clearance, wrote a letter invoking their credentials to make false claims about Hunter Biden's laptop, likely being Russian disinformation. Do you agree that this was an example of intelligence professionals abusing and politicizing their past positions and credentials?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do, and it is an example of what needs to end and why the American people elected President Trump to bring about those necessary reforms.
Thank you. Will you commit that no one who abuses his past position and credentials in this fashion will hold a security clearance in the future?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I want to be fair to my Democratic colleagues. Such abuses aren't just a problem on the left. Also in 2020, President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, published a book in which he revealed sensitive conversations with the president on national security matters, including highly classified information. He didn't submit this book for review and approval to ensure that our national security secrets were protected. Do you agree that John Bolton's actions likewise undermine public trust?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Will you commit that no one who so abuses his past position and risks the exposure of classified information by publishing a book without submitting it for review and getting approval before publication will hold a security clearance again or be trusted with classified information again?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move on to the topic of ODNI reform that I mentioned in my opening statement. Congress originally intended the ODNI to be a small coordinating agency that directs rather than replicates the now 18 constituent agencies that make up our intelligence community. Over the years, however, the ODNI has strayed from this vision to an organization that now publicly boasts nearly 2,000 people, more than half of whom are not detailed from an intelligence agency, but rather are career ODNI bureaucrats. They've even developed centers that are producing their own analysis. Will you commit today to working with this committee to restoring the ODNI to its original size, scope, and function?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to working with you and the committee as I, if confirmed, assess the current status of who is working in the ODNI and the function that they fulfill to make sure of its effectiveness and elimination of redundancies and bloating.
Thank you. Do you support some of the policy proposals I mentioned in my opening statement about capping the size of the ODNI, eliminating ODNI taxes, returning employees back to their home agencies to do real intelligence work?
Yes, Senator, I look forward to working with you as we assess where the ODNI needs to be in order to fulfill its core mission and function.
Thank you. And in your preparation for this hearing and this important responsibility, have you developed any thoughts that explains the mission creep and the empire building that we've seen at the ODNI in recent years?
Yes, Senator, I've had the opportunity to review the history of the ODNI, to speak to Ambassador Negroponte, the first Director of National Intelligence, as well as others who have served in this position. I think there are a number of contributing factors to the creation of centers, or not centers, but offices like the recently eliminated Office of DEI within ODNI, and other areas where I need to go in and assess the replication and the duplication of responsibilities that exist elsewhere and some of the other intelligence elements that ODNI has oversight over.
Thank you. Colleagues, I will lead by example and yield back 1 minute of my time and recognize the Vice Chair.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is a first. Ms. Gabbard, let me be clear, at least in my views. I salute your service to our country, but I have serious doubts about your judgment. And those are some of the areas that I want to pursue. First, until you were nominated by the President to be the DNI, you consistently praised the actions of Edward Snowden, some who, I believe, jeopardized the security of our nation, and then, in an effort to flaunt that, fled to Russia. You even called Edward Snowden, and I quote here, a brave whistleblower. Every member of this committee supports the rights of legal whistleblowers. But Edward Snowden isn't a whistleblower. And in this case, I'm a lot closer to the chairman's words, where he said Snowden is, quote, an egotistical serial liar and traitor who, quote, deserves to rot in jail for the rest of his life. Ms. Gabbard, a simple yes or no question. Do you still think Edward Snowden is brave?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government that led to serious reforms that Congress undertook.
Chairman, we got 5 minutes. So I take your answer, and these are your quotes. Brave, please join my bipartisan legislation calling for charges to be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Yeah,
back those words?
Once again, Senator, Edward Snowden broke the law. He also released information
we agree that Edward Snowden
that exposed the United States government's illegal
your
programs.
Legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States government's illegal activities. If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets, and I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton, he's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped. I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay. How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for it? How would we maintain the trust of our Five Eye partners? I find it very troubling. Let me move to 702. I know other members are going to raise this. Remember, the 702 is critical to our national security. 60% of the president's daily brief, 60% of the information President Trump gets every day in a PDB will come from this. You've had a long history of opposing 702. Many members of Congress have. But one of the things you actually done that not many have is not to reform it, but you actually said you wanted to repeal it. But now, whether it's, confirmation conversion or whatever, you call 702 vital. And I'm quoting, because of significant FISA reforms have been enacted since you left Congress. Ms. Gabbard, what are the reforms that have led you to now support 702?
In the short time that I have, Senator, I will just note that my actions in legislation in Congress were done to draw attention to the egregious civil liberties violations that were occurring at that time.
Ms. Gabbard, Ms. Gabbard, I ask you a question. Please give me the courtesy of responding. You said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law, right?
That all of you and your wisdom.
Ms. Gabbard, my time is getting short, but I got to just tell you, after the reforms were passed into law in April of 24, you went on Joe Rogan's podcast in May. The bill is now law. And you said, quote, this bill took an already bad problem and made it many, many times worse. Again, in my mind, this is a question of judgment. 702 is critical. I appreciate this late conversion, but I'm not sure I buy it because you've had such a consistent position. Again, I know my colleague's going to raise these, but rather than standing up to dictators like Putin and Assad, you've sometimes amplified his talking points. I mean, I just do not understand how you can blame NATO for Putin's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And when Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, you didn't condemn him. I can go through all the quotes. You actually questioned Americans' intelligence. Now, you mentioned a lot about trust. And one of the things that I'm so proud on this committee is my friend Senator Burr said, we always follow the truth. I say on this committee, it's the most valuable work I do in this Senate. We have a bipartisan approach to intelligence. I think we have worked to try to keep the intelligence community and earn their trust, and frankly, earn the trust of the American people. But I, respectfully, ma'am, I just don't believe on your judgment and credibility issues at this.
Hey folks, sorry about that. Something just came up. I got to go handle it. We just checked out Kash Patel's hearing, confirmation hearing. I think he's perfectly qualified. And then we checked out President Donald Trump speaking on the drone and airplane incident that happened in D.C. And then we just checked out Tulsi Gabbard's Senate confirmation hearing. I'm going to give you guys a deep dive on what I think about that tomorrow. Hope everyone has a great rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you folks are. Hope you're doing well. Make sure you stay informed and all that other good jazz. And yeah, I'll be back with more. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
This is the appropriate role that you should take going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Gabbard, Edward Snowden does stand out as having done particularly grave harm to our national security by revealing